Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, luckily for you guys and dolls listening at home, you cannot see me because this is an audio podcast and not a video podcast. So you cannot see that I currently have a pink face after enjoying a little bit too much time in the sun. One of the things I love about being my own boss is after years being stuck in an office with no windows at all or natural light, is the ability just to take the dog for a walk or sit in the back garden and tap away on my keyboard. But despite my age and experience, or maybe it was those years locked in an office with no windows, I simply forgot to apply sunscreen, thinking, hey, it's April, I'll be alright. But enough of my tales of sunburn today, because I want to talk about a real cool subject, which is AI-driven 3D facial recognition and authentication solutions. And tonight's guest has been innovating in this field for over 12 years, leveraging 7 issued patents. Now, using both 3D depth information and advanced artificial intelligence, they monitor IR reflectance characteristics, and SensibleVision is designed with the most stringent security requirements too. Now, their patented facial recognition technology dramatically reduced the need to type passwords. Hallelujah! I mean, that can only be a great thing, right? But I wanted to find out more about both the vision and the inspiration behind the company. So buckle up, hold on tight, as I beam your ears all the way to Florida so we can speak with George Brostoff, CEO of SensibleVision. So a massive warm welcome to the show, George. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, my name is George Brostoff, and I'm one of the co-founders of SensibleVision. And at SensibleVision, we're involved in 2D and 3D facial recognition to make devices and circumstances much more transparent to people and much more secure. And as I will touch on perhaps a little later in the podcast, I have one of those diseases called serial entrepreneurship, which means I've been involved with 2 other successful startups in the past, and I can't seem to get that out of my system.
Fantastic. I hope there's not a cure for that disease too.
Well, it depends who you ask. If you ask my wife, she might suggest there's a reason to look for a cure.
Now, at SensibleVision, you are known as a leader in AI-driven 3D face recognition and authentication solutions. But can you help anyone else listening, who could be listening anywhere in the world, visualize exactly what SensibleVision is and also what makes it different from anything else out there?
What really makes us different is applying technologies such as artificial intelligence and 3D recognition to make devices as well as environmental conditions adapt to the people. So essentially what we're doing is making it so that when you lift up your device, let's say your smartphone, that smartphone immediately recognizes you in a very secure fashion and does things that you haven't been able to do before with technology such as passwords and fingerprints. And that's know who you are the whole time, so that if you set your phone down, it's immediately secured. And if someone else were to flash your phone at your face, and like a police, essentially the system will immediately lock the moment that the police turns around and tries to use your phone. So it's applying and creating solutions that solve problems that haven't been well done in the past.
Now, you did mention a few moments ago that you are a serial entrepreneur and you have been innovating in this field for over 12 years now, leveraging 7 issued patents, I believe. But can you tell me more about that journey and how you essentially got here, and also any lessons that you may have learned along the way?
Well, this being my third time around, I can say my co-founder and I, Cyrus Azar, applied our experiences at our 2 other companies. So the first company that Cyrus and I did, we started that as a bootstrap company and grew that and eventually went public after 16 years. We were very young at the time, in our 20s, and no one would give us any money. And basically at the time we lamented how being a bootstrap company, God, think of all the things we could do if we raised lots of capital. So on the next company, I said, well, let's raise the money and let's get the large investments. So that's what happened at my second company, which involved RFID technology. And we raised lots of money, and I learned an important lesson, and that was that it did allow us to grow a bit more quickly. But I spent so much of my time raising money and continuing to raise money that I wasn't able to focus as much on the customers and the company and the product. And so with the third go round, we decided to do it bootstrap again, be self-funded, and we first actually became profitable in 2008. And that was actually very important, Neil, because when we started SensibleVision, we knew that the market that we were entering wasn't necessarily ready for our technology. And if I can share this with the other entrepreneurs out there, that's a very important point, because you can have the greatest ideas out there, but if the market's not ready, you can't control when it will be. You can influence that, you can create the best technology, but you want to be around to take advantage of it when it's there. And so I think bootstrapping us allowed us to have the ability to grow, become profitable early on, to not have to worry at the time about any outside investors that would otherwise become a little concerned about not achieving their exits early enough. And that worked very well for us at SensibleVision, because it really changed when Apple introduced facial recognition on the iPhone. Now we're not the only ones talking about it anymore, and it put us in an excellent position.
It's a great point you made there about creating something when the market's not ready. I mean, a few years ago, there were so many solutions to problems that didn't even exist yet that fell under that same banner. But can you tell me a little bit more about the tech behind SensibleVision and how it uses both 3D depth information and advanced artificial intelligence to monitor IR reflectance characteristics?
Sure. So one of the challenges when it comes to security is having a solution that is transparent to people, because essentially what that really means is that the more intrusive something is to the user, the person interacting, the less likely they are to accept it and use it. So essentially, we've been working with facial recognition since 2005, perfecting it so that we can see all the details on the user's face. And then starting in 2009, 3D cameras started to emerge that not only provided basically height and width information that you and I see when we take a photo with our smartphone, but actually depth information, and giving us the ability to actually rotate images of people's faces in space. And this means we can recognize people even faster with a greater degree of reliability, simply because not only is there more depth information, but we can also rotate that information so that if the person wasn't looking directly at the camera, they'll still be recognized. And that's so very important for applications such as, for example, access control and walking into a building, or basically eliminating the need for tickets for subways or train stations. And then you combine that with other technologies, such as the fact that these 3D cameras use special infrared lasers, which, by the way, are safe for our eyes. People don't realize that with the iPhone, but there's a laser actually shining at your eye. Thankfully, our governments have all approved those and limited their output. But essentially, we've developed technologies such as infrared reflectance, so that through artificial intelligence, we can tell whether or not that's human skin in front of the camera, or whether it's a mask or an inanimate object, as well as whether it's something like a printed photo. So those are the kinds of things that really provide the whole solution, because you don't want someone holding up a mask to your phone or to get access to a building and getting in. So we don't want the Tom Cruise Minority Report kinds of issues out there.
And there were a few issues, wasn't there, a few years ago? I think was it Apple, where people could unlock their phones using a photo, is that right?
Sure. So that's a really good point. And actually, that was just towards the end of last year that a group out in Vietnam successfully created a mask, which, interestingly enough, didn't look like a person, but had the right kinds of details to fool the algorithms that Apple used, or so this organization claimed. And I think that brings up another good point whenever you're talking about security. And the first thing is to say that nothing created by a human is unbreakable. And I mention that because we're always looking for the magic elixir when it comes to security, and to say, oh, wow, unbreakable encryption. Oh, wow, a security system that no one can break. But the real goal here has to be to make it so that it's so hard to spoof, fool, or break that a bad actor will go somewhere else. And that's what we strive for at SensibleVision. And that's why we use multiple techniques, such as the IR reflectance, as well as depth information, to ferret out the difference between that photo or that mask. And why you also, as a company, always have to continue to innovate, because the people out there, those bad actors, will always be looking for additional attack vectors, and you have to keep your technology ahead of them.
I'm so glad you mentioned security there, because as with any technology now, privacy and security play a huge factor, increasingly so with consumers now. So is that the case with SensibleVision too, and how you treat privacy and how you treat security?
Absolutely. And so our technologies tend to be integrated into the devices and into situations where basically the consumer remains in full control of their information. So essentially on your smartphone, for example, all of the information is something you enroll, you control, and stays on your device. And even in building access applications that we're working throughout the world, that information is still under the control of the user. So that's very important. Now, that said, one of the kind of interesting things about facial recognition in particular is it's a little different than a fingerprint. Your fingerprint basically is something that you have to give and is not necessarily an open view. Facial recognition takes advantage of the information that is always public. And the key then becomes not sharing anything that someone else can take advantage of or share inappropriately. And that's where companies like SensibleVision have to protect that data and create it so that, for example, the templates that we create, which is the biometric information that comprises the details of the user's face, can't be re-engineered back to an actual image of the person itself.
So do you think facial recognition technologies will dramatically reduce the need to type passwords too, or eventually even go beyond that and kill the password?
Well, you never say never.
Yeah.
I think Sean Connery learned that many years ago. I guess I've dated myself age-wise with that. But essentially, yes, I think we're going to finally see to the point where passwords aren't going to be used with the frequency we have in the past. And that's something that is so transparent, such as facial recognition, will largely replace them. Now, that said, what really becomes important isn't just replacing the password, because passwords, for example, were first developed many years ago when we first had the first dumb terminals out there and people interacted with computers and so forth. But the way that we use devices and security today is so different. We don't sit down for working at a terminal or even a PC for 40 minutes at a time anymore, and maybe occasionally get up to get a cup of coffee. Now we pick up our smartphone or we walk into a building, and essentially we need that to happen instantly and continuously. So what that really means is to know who's using the system all the time, which is something that a password can't do. And that allows for a new world of convenience and personalization as well as security, so that we don't have to worry about anybody else picking up our devices or basically jumping in behind us as we use our devices and so forth.
Many of the best tech solutions out there are successful because the tech is becoming almost invisible now and just works seamlessly without you having to think of how to use it or that it's even there. So do you think that AI authentication essentially makes security invisible too, or it could do in the future?
Well, it certainly can. I mean, AI by itself isn't what's going to make it transparent or basically better. AI is a great tool that allows us to improve the information we get, grab the right information, and essentially make better solutions. It's choosing the right kinds of technologies that take advantage of AI or are built on AI to do that. And that's one of the reasons why, for example, we focused on facial recognition, because your face is always in view. You don't have to try to align it with a great degree of difficulty. You don't have to reach and touch it like you do a fingerprint. So, all these things can benefit from AI, but it's choosing the right kinds of use cases to give the consumer and the user that great experience. Because if they don't have the great experience, you can have the best technology, but in the end, it won't be adopted in a widespread scale.
So do you think there's also an increasing trend towards mobile 3D for face authentication, especially if you look around all the smartphones now and how people are authenticating?
Absolutely. And in fact, we're working very closely with the smartphone vendors throughout the world, in China and other places in the world. And you're going to see an increasing number of devices that have 3D cameras in them. The 3D cameras allow us, combined with the technology we've developed, to recognize people very accurately and very fast, under 100 milliseconds, and to get around those problems, Neil, that we talked about earlier with the spoofing and faking it with photos and masks and so forth. So you're going to see that come into play more and more, and you'll see it move from the very high-end phones that it's initially on now and will be on for the next year, down to, like a lot of technologies, to the medium-end phones, and then in the not-too-distant future, on virtually all devices.
So what's next for SensibleVision, and indeed yourself, George? Is there anything else that you can share with us today?
Sure. Well, you're going to see our technology being used in railway stations so that you don't have to take out a ticket anymore. You're going to see our solutions used in lockers in public places so that you can basically retrieve all your information. And you can retrieve your personal belongings without having to insert a key or do anything at all, and to have good protection for those devices. And then most importantly, you're going to see it be used in residential areas where essentially you can walk up to your home, your apartment, and have the confidence and security that only the people that you've authorized are gaining access. And that's all going to be happening in the next few years.
Wow, exciting times indeed. So if we have awoken the curiosity in anyone listening, can you just remind them of where they can find you guys online, and also contact a member of your team if they've got any questions after our conversation today?
Certainly. Well, our website address is sensiblevision.com. So the word sensible and the word vision.com. And basically, if you would like to email us, that's info@sensiblevision.com. And at Twitter, we're oftentimes sharing our thoughts on security, artificial intelligence, and user experience at SensibleVision.
Before I let you go, could you tell me a little bit more about the name SensibleVision? How did you get there? Is there a story there?
Thank you. Oh, it's a great story, actually. This being the third technology company that I've been involved with, as we were looking at the names of the companies, we wanted to reflect the fact that it's a technology that was sensible and practical to actually use. And of course, we could also take advantage of the fact that we're using vision technologies. So hence the name SensibleVision. And I think it really relates very well to what we're doing, and the fact that the technology is something that solves the real life problems that we experience today.
Excellent. What a great story to end on as well. And I love how you're making technology increasingly invisible. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it in things like railway stations and lockers and things where you just walk up, show your face. That's it. It's fantastic. And being a serial entrepreneur is both a blessing and a curse, but I do wish you well on your quest there. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much. And it's been exciting, and I hope this is an interesting discussion for your listeners.
What a great story. I think it's incredibly easy to see why SensibleVision is a leader in convenient, secure and fast authentication, all using people's faces. And these techniques that they've developed really seem to be making a difference too. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen anything else like this out there. But hey, what about you? You're scattered all over the world. Maybe you've seen something equally as cool, or you've actually used this product. Send me anything that you've seen, because I'm genuinely fascinated about where this technology is heading. I just want to arm myself with as much information as I can. Also out there, in other news that's excited me this week, is the Bat Token and Brave Browser deal with the Dow Jones Group. Because in a world of low attention spans, maybe compensating users for their attention online is the only realistic way forward in the advertising industry. But again, let me know your thoughts. Enough of me rambling. I'm going to pass the mic over to you and shut up once and for all. So send me anything that you've seen this week that's excited you, whether it be your thoughts, comments, picks, anything at all, through Twitter to @NeilCHughes, or drop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. But we've made it to the end of the week, gang. I'll be back next week with daily episodes, so I hope you'll come and join me again. But right now, I'm going to go off into the sunset and apply some cooling after-sun gel to my arms and face and work out how the hell I'm going to get rid of this T-shirt tan, because nobody wants to see that, right? So I'll see you next week, gang. Until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.